This is Garis, Masculist, MGTOW flyers. That is 2 3-page essays on the themes of masculism and MGTOW, written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. This is flyer number 315, entitled "The Patriarchy Was Caused by Female Hypergamy." Description: this flyer lashes out at the hypocrisy of third-wave feminists who complain about the toxicity of men at the patriarchy due largely to their isscienacy, that is, their ignorance of science, and the dominant role women played in creating the patriarchy in the first place due to women's sexual preference over tens of thousands of generations for men who were taller, bigger, stronger, fiercer and smarter than they were. That is, to women's hypergamy, the female instinct to mate/marry up with a superior male. By itself. The patriarchy was created by female hypergamy. By Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. There's a deep-seated hypocrisy in feminism. It lashes out against male traits that feminists don't like. For example, male violence, rape, patriarchal attitudes, male condescension towards women, etc. But these male traits themselves were largely sexually selected for by women over many generations. Unfortunately for men, most feminists are isscienates, that is, ignorant of science, unable to reason scientifically, having chosen to study fluffy crap majors in high school, and then going on at university with more fluffy crap majors, making them fluffy crappers as adults, who often don't know the first thing about biology, genetics, evolution, etc. This isscienated ignorance translates into incoherent, illogical, and frankly stupid opinions that any cyanate male can quickly see holes through. For example, take patriarchy, the bugbear of the feminists who complain at length about its existence and want to create a society where it does not exist, by pushing the third wave of feminism, which is aimed at empowering women at men's expense. That is, third wave feminists see the empowerment of women as a zero-sum game. That is, any power gained by women is taken away from men, so that women are in a stronger position to determine how life treats them, rather than having men determine women's lives for them. Feminists harp on the patriarchy. It's one of their dominant concepts and causes them a lot of pain, judging by how much emotional energy they put into complaining about it. In a few days of writing this flyer, I will be sent a book entitled Patriarchy by a Melbourne-based emeritus professor feminist who gets invited to the US to talk about her book. I will read it carefully and give her my masculist perspective on it. Since I haven't read it yet, I can't predict what it will say, but I can guess. Many such feminist books have a gaping hole in their analysis, and that is their suffocating isscienacy, that is, the appalling ignorance of science of these female feminist authors, who typically have an academic background in English literature, history, etc. Nearly all of them have not studied the sciences, particularly physics, math, computer science, etc. Since they are such isscienates, not knowing any biology nor genetics, they are of necessity biased towards taking a culturist approach to their analysis of women's lib. It's a deeply ingrained dogma on their part that they seem incapable of overcoming, since to do so would require a deep knowledge of the sciences, math, etc., that most of these women are simply genetically incapable of acquiring. This inability was brought home to me decades ago via my first wife, who ended up getting a philosophy degree, but was as math and logic fuckwitted as most university-educated females. In her first philosophy year, she had to study some symbolic logic as part of a fresher course on philosophical reasoning and logic. This course had a frightening reputation amongst the women in her philosophy class, that is, the student year that she belonged to. She asked for my help. After about half an hour, it really began to dawn on me that my own wife, who was obviously intelligent enough for me to have married her, was a complete mathematical fuckwit. She just didn't have a math brain at all. It stunned me that she could not get her head around concepts that seemed trivial to me. Okay, I have a measured math ability that puts me at 1 in 1,000, but still I was shocked at how mathematically incompetent she was and grew increasingly impatient. Eventually, we agreed not to do this again, to save the marriage. She loved reading novels, that she was good at, and could literally read at double my pace. Her brain had grown up on a constant diet of literary works, devouring novel after novel at a rapid pace. So anything in her philosophical course that had a flavour of literature about it was easy fodder for her. But abstractions, math abstractions, were beyond her. And I get the same impression with a lot of the feminists I talked with in the 70s and 80s when I was heavily into feminist literature, sensing that feminist ideas could help me formulate a corresponding gender-lib ideology for men that I called Masculism in the early 70s. Without a strong math brain, these women did not study math at high school, did not know anything about calculus, and hence did not study the sciences, especially biology and genetics, at university, so grew up on a diet of words rather than math symbols and abstractions. I have a well-developed sense of what the Germans call Schadenfreude, which is joy in damaging, like a little kid enjoying kicking over his sandcastle at the end of a day on the beach. When I came across a feminazi whose patriarchal opinioning annoyed me due to its obvious isscienacy, I would give her the ribosome test. That is, I would intellectually challenge her by saying, "I bet you couldn't even give me a 2-minute talk on the function of the ribosome." "The what?" they would typically answer, showing that they knew nothing about molecular biology nor genetics. Their intellectual horizons extended only to literary and historical figures, not mathematical figures. To a male scientist and a masculist like myself, such a sign of ignorance only makes me sneer. I look upon most women's minds as childlike, inferior, unable to wrap their pretty little heads around anything that smacks of abstraction or generalization. When third-wave feminism came around the 80s and 90s, I was appalled at the illogicality and irrationality of its claims. These feminists were arguing that they were out to destroy the patriarchy, saying that it was evil, even toxic, that males are toxic, totally overlooking the biological fact, that it was women who created this patriarchy in the first place. For those not familiar with this argument, let me explain. Women are hypergamous, that is, they always want to mate up, to marry up, to monkey branch to a superior male who is more sexploitable by her. Women want the superior DNA of the superior male for her kids, so that her kids can have superior DNA than she has. Men are just disposable utilities, as the MGTOWs say, to women. If her current man loses his ability to provide her with resources for her and her kids, then she evolved to be able to coldly, disloyally, quickly dump him in favour of a more sexploitable male she can give her cunt to in exchange for his resources, his meat, his money, his power, his prestige. This is the way women evolved over tens of thousands of generations. It is a deep instinct that women have, For example, a female doctor will not mate/marry a man who is a plumber, who may even be making better money than she does, because a woman will not mate down in her eyes. That would go against her evolved instinct, which is actually good for the species because it aids the genetic betterment of the next generation. But there's a consequence of this female hypergamy, and that is that men are sexually selected by women, and it is women who have monopoly control of reproduction. It is women who control whose penises get to ejaculate inside them, whose sperm get to fertilize women's eggs. Women evolved to prefer sexing with men who could protect them from enemy tribes who could kill these women. So women sexually preferred men who were big, tall, strong, fierce, who could overpower a similar man from an enemy tribe. She also preferred to sex a man who was smarter than most men, because such men made better hunters, better able to anticipate the behavior of animals that these men hunted. A smart man brought home more bacon, whereas a dumb or average man brought home less. So tall, strong, big, fierce, smart men were given women's vaginas. Over tens of thousands of generations, it's not surprising, therefore, that men are taller, stronger, bigger, fiercer, and smarter than women, rather like the way peacocks have elaborate tail feathers, because peahens sexually preferred such peacocks. Yet the feminists complain bitterly about toxic males who are violent, who rape women, who cause wars and mass misery, etc. You can see the hypocrisy. These irrational, isscienacy feminazis are unable to see the hypocrisy in their own feminist views because they are largely isscienacy. They don't know anything about science, about biology, about evolution, especially evolutionary psychology. Women are sexually attracted to smart men, so they'll try to seduce as intellectually superior a male as they can attract, and more importantly, keep. Because these women want the man they give their vaginas to stick around during the years that her children are small and dependent. Research shows that men are 4 IQ points smarter than women on average as a result of this female hypergamy regarding male intelligence levels. There's a limit to just how intellectually superior a male can be that a hypergamous female can keep. Research also shows that if the IQ superiority of the man over a woman is more than 5 IQ points, then the man will be bored and frustrated by her and leave. So the 4 IQ point average superiority of men over women is consistent with this max 5 IQ point limit. As a male who can abstract better than most, it's easier for me to put myself in the shoes of other types of people, trying, for example, to imagine what it must feel like to be a woman living in an obvious patriarchy where men dominate everything. For example, men have won 99% of the science Nobel Prizes. Men have higher testosterone levels, so are much more ambitious, aggressive, persistent at finishing difficult tasks, so greatly outperform women at the top end of the performance scale. Men look down on women on the whole, not taking them seriously, really only humouring them because men want to put their penises in these women, especially the young, fertile, pretty ones, who therefore have superior genes that men find attractive. Since men have a 10% higher IQ variance over women, men are superior to women at the top end of just about any measurable performance scale. Men evolved to be like this because women sexually chose such men, preferentially. Women have monopoly, in capital letters, control over reproduction. So it is women who sexually selected men to be like this, that is superior to women, that is taller, stronger, bigger, fiercer, more toxic, to use a third wave feminazi term, and especially smarter. It must be tough to be a feminist in a male-dominated world. If women were a bit smarter, they could study math and the sciences more easily, and hence understand better why men are smarter, etc. than women. But women are not a bit smarter. They are dumber than men, who prefer to study fluffy crap at high school, making them fluffy crappers at college and in life. who look around for some gullible manslave to pay for her to stay at home in a middle-class house that he pays for, that she can raise her, capital letters, kids in, and a decade later can divorce rape him, taking his kids, his house, half his stuff, get child payments and alimony without any moral or legal obligation on her to get off her fat parasitic ass and FIP up. That's become a FIP, equals financially independent person. That is a responsible adult. The patriarchy is not going away because it's genetically caused, that is caused by women, by women's hypergamous nature, that is women's sexual choices for men who were taller, stronger, bigger, fiercer and smarter than they were. 1 million or more years later, we are now living with the consequences of those generations' old sexual preferences on the part of women. We call that consequence in today's parlance the patriarchy. So women only have themselves to blame for the patriarchal world we live in. Women created it. They should therefore take responsibility for it, instead of blaming men for it, which is so typically child-minded of the feminazis, an attitude that masculists and men in general usually sneer at, only confirming in men's minds that women have childlike, irresponsible minds. This childlike behaviour of women is dangerous for them, because if we men become collectively convinced that women are incapable of behaving as responsible adults, that is by fipping up, and if the calvary of the divorce courts for men continues, then we men will strip women of their right to vote, arguing that, quote, females are children and children do not have rights. Cheers. Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. Prof. Hugo de Garis at yahoo.com. Website, profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. And in brackets, contains links to 300 plus YouTube masculist essays / videos, and to the book Masculism, Men's Rebellion Against Being Manslaves to Women, an e-textbook of 300 plus masculist flyers for men's studies courses. Ciao.